So the South Australian, that's still got to change. So I'll send Graham a message now, letting him know that we're starting.
Yep, Graham's actually joining, and
All
Brian
right,
added you as co-host.
Thank you.
There's Graham in the dark, our Australian Blair Witch Project member. I'm so scared. Stop, Bubble. I'm scared. I actually thought it was a pretty good movie. Just me. Blair Witch. I mean, they hyped it up as if it was real, and I went and watched it going, I don't know, but I actually thought it was a good movie, even though it was a little slow. It was meant to seem like an amateur movie. That was the whole point. But anyway. So how's everybody doing this morning?
Good.
All right. So Vince, are you driving, or are you going to just sit in your car?
I'm actually at a Boy Scout camp.
Cool.
At a shooting. My son's in Sea Scouts here in Virginia.
Okay. Yeah.
And they're literally, they'll be shooting here in about 45 minutes to an hour over at the.
Okay.
They're doing pistols today, so I said, well, got to do a Zoom.
That's right. You're in your studio. You got good acoustics in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just finished. I wanted to finish it before I started the meeting. That's why I'm a couple minutes late starting. But I'm the degree master for the 32nd degree in our Scottish Rite, and I had to send out our. I just agreed to our practice schedule with the head of our degree, our minister, director of work. We also do the KCCH investiture this year, so we have practices every Sunday. Well, one Sunday a month, and I just piggyback on them. They meet at 1, we meet at 2, because there's 5 of us that are in both. So it just makes sense. If I got to be at Khedive Temple for one practice, I might as well have my other practice right after that. So I wanted to update the script, make sure everything was correct, get all the cast members straight, get all the dates right, and send that email right before I turn this on. So I got that done. So just another hat. Morning, Rick. How are you?
Good morning.
Yeah, I tell you, being a degree master, one of the most thankless jobs in masonry. It's hurting cats trying to get people to commit to come to practices and all that. We don't have, man, I'm not queued up. I know I have an event scheduled, our next one scheduled, I think, for April 15th, but I don't have it in my events, so I haven't done that yet. But I'm sure I have somebody lined up. Anywho, so Brian, what's new with you?
Not a lot, mate. Just doing what you do,
All right.
I am aware that there is another Zoom event starting around about now as well.
Oh, okay.
Which is competing with us. So
what?
That might be interesting.
Okay. Who's that? Who hosts that? What
it's actually in the US. It's Scottish Rites 2 Secrets of the Scottish Rites Society.
Oh, okay. I hadn't heard about
obviously, it. It's not going to be good as this one, obviously. It goes out.
Well, I mean, it must be secret because I don't know about it. That's all right. And we just had I got to finally attend an Allied Masonic Degrees meeting Thursday. I was a member already up until 2020. I was Sovereign Master, and I moved to Phoenix. My wife was going to go to college out there, and we moved out there. And after 2 years, we ended up moving back. And I went back to my friends in the AMD. It's like, so what happened to Charles C. Rouse Council? Oh, we folded. Well, what happened? Well, I don't really know. We just stopped meeting. We're not paying dues. We're not doing anything. Oh, okay. So what do we do? I don't know. I guess we could join another council. So that was 22 years ago. And I finally got around to joining another one. But I got a chance. Actually, I went to my first meeting and got voted in. I guess they affiliated me. They had to figure out how to bring me in because you normally don't affiliate, I guess, or whatever. So I got to give a talk on the cryptic degrees here in the York Rite. And that's a talk I gave for Virginia Research Chapter, which also is here in Virginia Beach. And I hosted a couple of their Zoom meetings during COVID, and I was one of their guest speakers. So I thought it was appropriate for the AMD folks. But it's neat, Brian. You'll appreciate I had a graphic at the end that had all of the UK's, all of your various appended bodies under UGLE, and pointed like, here is the Royal Arch chapter, or the Royal Arch degree. Here is the Mark Master Mason body, which is 2 degrees, including the Mark Master. And then you have to have both of those to join the Council of Royal and Select Masters. Whereas here in the States, you would join, in Virginia, you would join the Royal Arch, get the Mark Master and the Select and Royal Master and Most Excellent Master, and you don't get the Super Excellent. And then you get the Royal Arch, and then you go in the Commandery. And everywhere but Virginia and West Virginia, you have a separate council, which is Select and Royal Master and Super Excellent Master. So I went into the whole history of all of that and how those degrees came about. But it's really fun. Those degrees really, it's the most convoluted way of how degrees come about and how they were organized. And, you know, in some states they're this way, in some states they're that way. And it was a lot of fun research and all that. So that went over well, and it was nice to be back in an AMD. They're basically a research body for Royal Arch. So not too different from us. They meet 4 times a year. So that was pretty cool. And they wear green blazers. And my Scottish Rite Valley wears green blazers, so I didn't have to go buy a new jacket. I just which is what's important.
Always important.
I'm sorry. Yeah, it's pretty neat to go to a Scottish Rite thing. Last Saturday, we had a Scottish Rite workshop, and Norfolk Valley was the first to start wearing different color blazers. So we all wear these green blazers. And so we go to an event for the state, and we stand out because there's like, you know, a dozen of us, we all kind of look similar. And then other people started copying our idea, you know, using different colors. But it's pretty cool to go somewhere and, like, you know, show your gang signs, I guess, you know. It's pretty cool. I thought it was cool. Morning, brother David. Nice to be with us. You're on mute.
Good morning. How's everybody doing today?
Good.
Good.
And Dave, we need to talk about you being a speaker at one of these. I know we talked briefly about it.
Okay. I'm sure we can find something. I'm sure we can find something for me to talk about.
Absolutely. Okay. I just was going through old emails, and I saw I'd email you once about it. So I'm like, oh. And Graham joins us again. There he is. Brother Peterson, good to have you with us.
Hey, good morning, gentlemen. Glad to be here, man.
All right. And Brother Clark on the road as always. Nice to have you with us.
Good morning.
Righty. Where are we at? Just after 10. I see somebody joining, and they're taking time to get admitted. So yeah. So anybody else got anything interesting going on Masonically they've been doing lately? I've had quite a few things past 2 weeks. Anyone? David, did you go to the oh no, you're in Ohio. Well, you might have. Did you go to the Cornerstone for the George Washington Memorial?
No, there was a pretty good group. I think Ohio sent like 200 or 300 people, but I was not among them.
Awesome. Yeah. I did not have a chance to go, and that's not quite down the street, but close for me. But
yeah,
people said, "Why weren't you there?" I expect you to be there.
Yeah, no, Grand Lodge loaded up several charter buses and took a whole bunch of people down. But
awesome.
I heard it was quite an event, but I was not.
Oh yeah. I saw the pictures. It was pretty cool. Yeah. Morning, brother Rivolo. I see Rex Delacruz is trying to join. He's been sitting there joining for like 5 minutes. I don't know what's his deal. Did he get up? He gave up. Maybe he'll come back in.
If it's anything like me, my computer, I'll decide not to work as soon as I try to log in.
Yep. You're very muted. You got something up with your mic? You might want to check that.
Okay.
Sounds like you're in a box. Actually, it sounds like you have a sock over your microphone. That's better.
Let's try that. Is that better?
There we go. Much better.
Yeah.
Much better.
I had it. It was going through my headphones. So.
Okay. Yep. Very cool. All right. Well, I'm going to give a minute or two, see if we have anybody else trickling in. I did put an announcement out on Facebook 5 minutes before I started this saying, okay, with daylight savings time, we are starting in 10 minutes. Because last time poor Brian was left out. He joined us at 11. There are several people I noticed besides Brian who came in like after an hour into it. So obviously they missed the time cutoff. I think we need to just do away with that silly daylight savings time and be done with it. Pick a time, we'll accept it, and then move on. I just hate making the change every year. It's a pain in the butt. I'll wait for this brother to join us. Morning, Brother Brown.
Good. Good morning. How you going?
How you doing this morning, Brother Brown? You're on mute. You want to say hello? He's having connection issues. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to go and do this. Good morning, everyone. Oh, there you are. Brother Brown, how are you doing? Yeah, I having connection issues there.
How are you?
Good. Good to have you with us. And Brother Sullivan, good to have you with us, sir. We're doing good here. All right. I'm going to go and mute. I'm going to mute you there, brother. Got a lot of background noise there. Good morning, everyone. My name is Chris Douglas. I am Senior Warden of Virginia Research Lodge. I'd like to welcome all of you to our unstated meeting here. This is hosted by Virginia Research Lodge in Highland Springs. And I'm going to put some things in the chat here real quick. Got some links I want to drop in the chat. This is our Facebook group. If you're not already a member of Virginia Research Lodge's Facebook group, please join us. There's a link to our lodge website where we have all of our research papers and other fun Masonic education related things. And then a link to our unstated meetings on YouTube. And we'd like to put these up generally within a week of hosting the meeting. We will put it up on YouTube for you. And then we have my email if you would like to sign up for our research papers. I prefer you just reach out to me on Facebook Messenger. But if you're not on Facebook, feel free to email me and get added to our research papers. We send them out every week. And we just sent our 200th a couple weeks ago. So it's pretty cool. We're into the 200s now. It's pretty awesome. We've been doing that for over 3 years. Brian, I need you to watch things for a second. I gotta let my dog out because he's whining in the background. I'll be right back.
Yep, no problem.
Good morning, Brian.
Good morning. How are you, Alan?
So Brian, what are you going to say? What are you going to do with all this power that has been thrust upon you?
I think press leave.
Morning, Brother Brown.
So, Graham, what's that, mate? And he's back.
Yes, yes. I hope y'all weren't just staring at each other for a minute there.
Yeah, they were making bad comments.
Oh, okay. Remember, this is recorded, so anything you see, I do eventually. But you'll be all smiles when I get done. It's like, damn, that guy said that. Never let him in again. So, yeah, Brother Sullivan, you want to say hello? You're on mute. If you want to unmute.
I did unmute.
There you are. Nice
Good
to have you with
morning.
us.
Good morning.
Where are you coming from, Brother Sullivan?
I'm in King George, Virginia.
King George. Okay, whereabouts is that? It sounds familiar, but
Northern Neck.
Northern Neck?
East of Fredericksburg.
Oh, okay. I remember going to Colonial Beach one time. I lived in
You were lost. You were
Fredericksburg.
lost.
No, I went there on purpose, believe it or not. I was living in Fredericksburg, and I wanted to attend lodge there in my district besides Fredericksburg. I drove all the way to Colonial Beach. It was their annual. I just remember it was a really nice building near the beach. They had a big porch, and the master was finally going out of office after like 2 or 3 years. They finally found someone to relieve him. And they've since folded, so I'm glad I got to go there at least once. So I do like that area. It was nice living up there.
I'm here amongst 3 dogs on a porch, so I'm probably going to mute it again just to listen, because
yes.
when they get fractious, they stop.
Yes, I understand. I need to make arrangements in my backyard, because I tried a couple weeks ago to host this, and my main concern was that you could actually see me, and I could do the camera thing and all that. But even though it was fairly early and I was wearing these specs instead of my regular ones, which have the transition, they turn into sunglasses, I could not see the screen. It was 10 in the morning and it was so bright out I couldn't see the laptop to manage anything. So like, this ain't gonna work. So I got to figure out something where I'm in the shade outside. Otherwise I can't do this. But I'd love to be sitting outside having a cigar right now and hosting this meeting, but I'll figure something out one of these days. So one day you'll see me outside. Not that you'll know, because I'll just have this background, but I might turn the background off for that. I don't know. Anyway, so I'm gonna go ahead and introduce our speaker. I don't have anything else really to go on. I think we have enough people in here. Let me go ahead and mute you there, Ross. Brother Vince, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself. Do you need, well, I guess you don't have a presentation or you don't have slides or anything. It's just you.
No, I've got a picture that I guess I could hit the share content button.
Yep. Okay. I'll go ahead and give you the ability to share. Then when you're ready, you can just kick that on, but I'll just make you the main picture here and you can just take it off. Get started whenever you're ready.
All right.
Sorry.
Oh, there he is. Hold on. Brother Ravello, good to have you with us. Where do you hail from?
I'm from Virginia, Pimpermickenware number 64.
Very good. All right. We actually have some Virginia Masons in the house. That's unusual for us.
Oh, well, we are, here's the best representative you can have. I'm a senior warden right now. Next year is going to be my year. It's going to be the year of the rooster. I call myself the rooster.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad you joined us today.
I'm so pleased. Thank you very much, brothers.
All righty. Okay, Vince, go ahead and take it away. Let me make you central stage. There you go. And have at it.
Good morning, worshipful masters and brethren. My name is Vincent Carden. I'm past master of Prince George Lodge 115 AF and AM in beautiful Prince George, Virginia. 27 year Mason, third generation, proud third generation Freemason. One of the subjects I wanted to touch on today is the Masonic history of two profound Freemasons during the American Civil War. Two gentlemen, I was introduced to this subject about 20 years ago at Gettysburg. I know a lot of brethren have seen the Brother to Brother monument at the National Cemetery at Gettysburg. And I got to digging and doing some reading on it. And Chris approached me and I said, well, I know a little bit about it and I can help you out. What we have here in relation to the monument itself is two men. Actually, one of the men is not in the statue that's is behind this story, and we'll get to that later. But it's the story of Lewis Armistead, Confederate general, and Winfield Scott Hancock, Union general. And we'll get a brief breakdown of both men's career during the war and their Masonic affiliations and history and whatnot. We'll start with Armistead. Armistead, some reports have him called low, but that's nothing confirmed. But I guess in the movie, what you'll see back in I believe it's the 90s, Jeff Shera's novels, Gods and Generals and The Last Full Measure were brought to the big screen, and some fictional representations were taken in regards to the relationship between Hancock and Armistead, but not entirely true. Some of it a little stretch, but Armistead is a native Carolinian by birth, being born in New Bern, North Carolina in February of 1817. The thing with Armistead, it's a contrast between two men, the northerner Hancock and the southerner Armistead. More of with the southerners, you'll see more of a militaristic background in the sense that their families tended to enlist in the army more, per se, at a higher concentration. The cool thing about Armistead, five of Lowe's uncles fought in the War of 1812, which I thought was pretty cool. And one of his uncles, George, was the commander in Baltimore at Fort McHenry. And as we all know, that was where Francis Scott Key sat on the prison ship in the harbor and wrote down what he saw, the Star Spangled Banner, in relation to the bombardment of that fort, which was commanded by Lewis Armistead's uncle. So
hey, Vince, sorry, Vince, I just want to let you know I'm sharing the picture of the statue right now. So if I have any, I'll put them up there. So go ahead.
Very nice. So he comes from a very venerated and deeply militaristic family. Low Armistead does. His father, Lewis's father, was a very respected general that we'll see later on tended to pull him out of a little heat at West Point. But he coming out, he's just got a regular childhood, nothing too profound. Here in 1833, he gets his commission to West Point. Now, unfortunately, he had to resign, I believe, twice due to his inability to learn French. And that was, from what I was reading, French was a big hang up back in the day for some of the cadets. The boys had a hard time getting it down. And then pretty much the straw that broke the camel's back was an incident. Armistead and Cadet Jubal Early, who, if you know anything about Civil War history, and Jubal Anderson Early, he was quite the hothead and had a way with language, per se, very salty. So the incident with Early and Armistead in the chow hall at West Point does not shock me. Reportedly, there was a plate smashed over the head of Jubal Early, which I do not doubt, because he was, like I said, he had a tendency to pipe off and was very hot-headed. Even in older age, if you do some research, Jubal Early tended to be hot-headed in battle, and that caused him a lot of problems, especially with other officers and higher-ups. So 1836, Armistead, he comes out of West Point due to his inability to complete the schoolwork. Like I said, more especially the French. So luckily, his father, being in a higher position in the Army, gets him a commission with the 6th U.S. Cavalry. Well, the 1839 date pretty much was the general year that most of his most of his cadets that he was in school with, they graduated around that time as well. So it was kind of a good time for him to get his commission, just like they were going to get their commission as well in the Army. So 1839, his father procures him a commission with the 6th U.S. Cavalry. Now, just like any soldier of the period, any officer of the period, they're going to head out to the frontier, Oklahoma, territory of Oklahoma. Armistead spent quite a bit of time out there. Fort Washita, some time out there. Again, Oklahoma territory. Eastern Oklahoma, a little bit of Arkansas. After the Oklahoma assignment, he goes down. This is pretty much the training ground. He ends up fighting in the Mexican War, and that's pretty much where a lot of both Union and Confederate soldiers cut their teeth, per se, in battle. Was the Mexican War. They pretty much had their way with the Mexican Army. If you've done some research on it, they pushed. There were some losses. It wasn't a cakewalk, but they put up a good fight. You could say that. But it was Stonewall Jackson, Robert E. Lee, a lot of the Union higher ups that would eventually reach the higher up status in the Union Army. They were in Mexico as well. And we got him here at Contreras, Churubusco, and then at Chapultepec seemed a little bit hot. The battle took a little bit. The Mexican Army put up a little bit of a bigger fight at Chapultepec. And that's where we get Low Armistead takes his first wound and takes him off the field of battle, which eventually that cost him the trip to Mexico City. And that was their big thing. That was everybody wants to go to Mexico City. All the soldiers were really stoked about it. We got to get to Mexico City and have them capitulate. So unfortunately for him, he missed the Mexico City campaign, but we eventually win that. We win that war. After the war, Armistead's going to come back. During Armistead's life, it's a stark contrast between he and Hancock. Hancock, Armistead had a tough time with family matters. He lost 2 wives. 2 wives died to illness. He lost 2 children. But his Masonic tie, we're good. Hold on one second.
Okay.
Yeah, we're good. I'm at the shooting range.
Oh, no, I'm just, we're on the other side of the camp. We're going to walk down to the beach.
We're good. Thank you.
Okay.
So that's another camper. Sorry about that. So during his life, he's going to lose 2 wives and 2 children, which in the 1840s and 50s, it wasn't uncalled. It wasn't unheard of that you would lose loved ones to disease, cholera and typhoid. But what I was researching, when I was researching, I noticed Brother Armistead comes out of Washington Alexandria Lodge, and his second wife, Cornelia, that's where he meets her in Alexandria. So I'm guessing, until I can get a hold of his records, I'm guessing that's where he took the degrees, was in Alexandria when he was with his second wife, Cornelia. Then I'd like to go back. I want to dig a little bit deeper into his Masonic history, but that's the last time he's in Alexandria. So you got to figure he finished his degree work up there in Alexandria at the time at the Washington Alexandria Lodge. After 1850, he shipped back out to the frontier, Kansas, Nebraska, working on the native, the relationships with the natives, fighting with the natives, all that what we would call the Indian stuff, Kansas, Nebraska. Later on, being sent to Utah. A lot of action in Utah, so he's bouncing around from fort to fort, taking care of business for the U.S. Army. Later on, does he go to California, and California will play a big role for he and Hancock's relationship later on. He's toward the late 1858, he's sent to California. And the U.S. Army had set up a Camp San Diego. That's where he's going to meet. That's where he's going to come in contact with Brother Hancock. Camp San Diego is what they called it at the time, and they were having issues with the Mojaves Indians in the area, and that's what pretty much the U.S. Army sent him out there to take care of the Mojave issue, negotiate with them. He gets the peace with the Mojaves, and then eventually at the outbreak, at the secession of South Carolina, there's the meeting with he and Hancock and Albert Sidney Johnson, who was another incredible Confederate commander and brother. They had their last meeting there in Los Angeles, but just to do some post LA stuff, his Civil War record is just a who's who of the Eastern campaigns. I know we have some Virginians here, but the Seven Pines around, you're going to look around the east side of Richmond, around the airport. You'll see a lot of that still there. The 7 Days battles. That was McClellan's attempt at taking the capital. Armistead was at Malvern Hill, which is really not a hill. It's a slight, if you go there, it's right off Route 5. Very, very intense battles here in the Eastern Theater with Armistead. Malvern Hill especially was a bloodbath. Later on, we find him again at Second Bull Run, where Stonewall Jackson comes in. Just a few notes about Second Bull Run. It got so hot at Second Bull Run, they were throwing rocks at each other. That's how it got really intense at Second Bull Run. We find him again in Antietam, which was the single bloodiest day of the war. Incredible work there. Dunker Church, Cornfield. As a matter of fact, if Armistead had probably turned to his right about 1,000 yards, he would have ran right into Hancock. Hancock was over in the Sunken Road at the time, and it was a massive bloodbath there. Brethren on both sides, I've done the reading. They would cut out of camp life. There would be a flag of truce, and there were reports of brethren meeting adjacent to the battlefields in a form of truce to do degree work, to just sit in fellowship. Even as intense and nasty as some of this stuff got, they never did lose their Masonic ties to each other, even in battle. Reports of hospital visits from one Masonic brother to another, opposite sides, were not irregular. I've read reports of some non-Masons seeing nurses, male nurses, go down the line and handing out goods and different comfort items, but more especially tobacco was a big thing. And one report was this one orderly was handing out tobacco to selected members in the hospital, and that was a brother to brother love. Tobacco was a scarce commodity, and they wanted their brothers to share in the tobacco. But that's a lot of that did go on. Later on, after Antietam, Armistead heads to Fredericksburg. If you've done some reading on Fredericksburg, Marie's Heights was an absolute slaughter field. There again, Hancock and Armistead were just 1,000 feet apart, if that. Hancock right in the center of Marie's Heights. One of the nastiest battles, one of the most useless, senseless acts of the war. If you do some reading on it, the 2 or 3 charges up Marie's Heights after Burnside's told that, this is fruitless. You're not going to get anything. They come out of Fredericksburg. The Union comes out of Fredericksburg and attempts to take Marie's Heights 3 times, and it is a absolute slaughter. Both men are there together on opposite sides. And then finally at the Gettysburg campaign, we have Armistead coming in the first day. taking control of Cemetery Hill, then pivoting back to Lee Center on the third day. And that's where we get our statue eventually comes from. Hancock, I'll get to some Hancock. He's a Pennsylvanian. A lot different background, family-wise than Lowe. Lewis Armistead's family's, 5 uncles, George at Fort McHenry. Hancock's family was a little bit more laid back, Pennsylvanian. Our brother Winfield Scott Hancock, named after the famous General Winfield Scott, who is a native of Dinwiddie County. It's the next county over from me, and that's they still hold claim to fame for that, the hero of 1812. We have Hancock born in 1824. There's about a 7-year difference between Hancock and Armistead. Cool thing about Hancock, he has an exact twin brother. I didn't know that till doing the research. And there again, compared to Armistead, Hancock rolled right through West Point, graduating in 1844. After his commissioning, just like everybody else, they got to send him out to the frontier. Hancock heads out to the Red River Valley, does some stuff. I believe there's some Seminole War. Lot of contact with the natives, with Armistead in the west, Hancock in the east, with the Seminoles. They were down there pounding away. Eventually, both men, as I referenced, Armistead, he's in the Mexican War, and now here we have Hancock coming down to Puebla, fighting in Puebla, Mexico. Now, their contact, they may have had some contact. There's only one letter that I know of that any researcher has referenced where Hancock references Armistead, and it was just in passing. But Hancock goes on later to fight again in the Battle of Contreras and Churubusco. So they were in contact, officers both. So with the Masonic presence there, I knew it was. I'm sure there were field lodges set up at the time. One of the curious things I found out was Hancock did not receive his degree work till 1860. So I think we all know brethren or non-Masons who would go, man, you ought to be a Mason. I'm sure Hancock and Armistead may have had that conversation where Hancock is not a brother, but he receives his letter of dispensation from his lodge, from his home lodge in Pennsylvania in 1860. So I'm sure Armistead may have been working on him all those years and going, hey man, we like where you come in the lodge, and we all have friends like that, or men who should be Masons. Hancock should have been a Mason many years before his letter of dispensation from his Pennsylvania lodge. But later on, after Mexico, he comes out of Mexico and he heads up to the Midwest. There again, so back in Florida for the Third Seminole War. He's blessed with 2 children who they make it a little bit farther along in life than Armistead's. But beautiful wife, Elmira. We'll talk about Elmira in a minute. They marry in 1850. After the Third Seminole War, they're just like any officer of the time. They're bouncing around wherever there's a flare up with the natives. That's where they have to go. So now, after 1850, they're going to move him out to Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. There again, there was some contact with Armistead, and especially in Utah. That post had to have been. It wasn't a very large post for both of them. So I'm figuring they had contact there, and not just. I wouldn't say brief contact. They more than likely had some deep conversations together about the war, about their experiences in Mexico, and whatnot. Later on, they're going to move him out to California. That's in 1858. Like I mentioned, 1860s when he's going to get his letter from PA, letter of dispensation. So 1858, he and Armistead, Armistead being in what we call LA now, Los Angeles, and Hancock being in well, Armistead, San Diego, Hancock in LA. They both Hancock being in logistics and supply, they had to ran into each other, and they became quick friends, just like we all do in our fraternity. The referencing some research that I had watched, a gentleman who somebody finally wrote a good book about it. There's a YouTube interview with the author and his take on the Armistead Hancock relationship. He's a non-Mason, and he goes into pretty much the military record, blah blah blah, and then he was kind of trying to downplay the Masonic connection. Yeah, there was a Masonic connection, but we know as well as anybody else. We've came in contact with brother Masons. I've spent anywhere from hours upon hours, we all have, with brethren, and you get a close tie with your brother. I believe we're different, and I believe Hancock and Armistead were different, in that they had a deep friendship, whether there is documented evidence of it or not. You're not going to do what Armistead did in the death throes if you did not have a connection with Hancock. So the author of that book tries to poo-poo it and put it in a little bit not a glorious light, but he just kind of talks it down. And there again, he's a non-Mason. He doesn't know the oath we take to one another, the blood that we share fraternally. So I gave him a pass on that. There again, Hancock's record is just chock full of the same. We're seeing him pop up pretty much in the same Eastern Theater as Armistead, in the East here in Virginia. There again, Fredericksburg, Chancellorsville, which was another bloodbath. They all are. But the Gettysburg, the subject of that sculpture, that beautiful sculpture, and I recommend if you haven't been there, it is very profound. It's beautiful. The gentleman who is carrying forward, the man laying down, is Armistead after Pickett's charge. And I've walked across the field at Pickett's charge in Gettysburg, me and my son, many years ago. And the man laying down is Armistead, and the man with the cloverleaf on his uniform is Captain Bingham. He is on the staff of Brother Hancock. If you know anything about Pickett's charge, it was an absolute melee. It's over 1 mile across an open field, facing the teeth of the Union artillery assault. Third day, Lee did exactly what they thought he was going to do. The first day, he's up north, cemetery, trying to crush the top of the hook. Second day, he's back down south. And then they knew the third day he's going to thrust in the center. And that's where Hancock, that's where Armistead rolls through with Pickett's brigade, and they cross over Pickett's charge. And like I said, I've walked that field, and it will send a chill up your back. It's not flat. It's rolling terrain. Coming up on the turnpike, they had to jump a fence. So you're figuring you're not shooting when you're jumping over a fence. So they took extremely heavy losses in that central push. Later in the attack, as Armistead is coming up to the center of the Union line, they get flanking fire come in from Cordery Farm. from Union sharpshooters. So now they're facing the teeth of the artillery in the center. Armistead's fighting his way to the center. Now you've got a flanking maneuver from Cordery Farm, and they're just laying waste to the Confederates as they come up to the center of the line, trying to break the center. Lee thinking, we fought left first day, we fought right the second day. The center's got to be weak, and they go in and Pickett's charge. They attempt to bust the center. That's where Armistead, in an act of insanity, puts his hat on the end of his sword. That is referenced. That is a true story. So you're definitely a large target going into any battle. If you put your hat on the end of your sword, you're going to catch it. So Armistead crosses the wall. As he's crossing the wall, he is getting ripped apart. Up to 3 different wounds were counted. And the assault ends up failing, as we all know. But at the time, Armistead was the high watermark of what they call the high watermark of the Confederacy. There, Hancock was within 200 or 300 yards at the time. Hancock suffered a debilitating wound right in the center, not far from where Armistead was struck down, taking a bullet in the pommel of his saddle, which had to have fragmented the bullet, and it goes into his leg. Very debilitating injury, which is it's gonna come back and haunt him later on. But weirdly, they pull out it may have been a nail from the saddle or the pommel, but a nail had lodged into the wound, and there was they made a hearty joke about that. It was like, the damn Confederates are running out of bullets. You got to shoot nails at us now. So that was a lighter moment when they were taking care of Hancock. So both men go down. Armistead, thinking he's at the end of his life, gives the grand hailing sign or sign of distress of a master mason, repeating the words, "Oh Lord, my God, is there no help for the widow's son?" At that point, Captain Bingham springs up, hearing his brother in distress. Braves, Weathers slam through a sheet of bullets to grab Armistead and to retrieve him and bring him back into protection behind the Union line. Armistead, thinking he's about to expire, presents Captain Bingham with his last relics, I believe a diary, some personal effects that he wanted to give to his brother Hancock. Now, that's pretty profound, that you're not just gonna hand off any old personal effects diaries or anything at your time of death to just anybody, even a brother. So there was a deep connection. As I said, 1860, our brother Hancock receives his letter. So they were friends way before the Freemasonic ties came into being. So Captain Bingham receives in the sculpture, Captain Bingham receives the personal effects of brother Armistead and promises to take that effects from his brother he will go find brother Hancock, and brother Hancock did eventually receive those effects. Both men being taken off the field the third day, the final battle. Hancock recovered. He carried that wound with him the rest of his life, and it really later on it proved to be the end of him, pain-wise, debilitating. And Armistead, the report, mostly the bullets, the wounds he received were flesh, no resounding bones, anything, nothing major of what you would see in an action like that, mostly flesh. But he took a fever, and 2 days after the Battle of Gettysburg, brother Armistead passes away. Brother Hancock, he'll continue to fight on with the army, with the Northern Army, going into later on the Wilderness with the wound. He's still carrying, brother Hancock is still carrying this wound with him. The Wilderness, which was an absolute bloodbath. Mule Shoe, I've been to the Mule Shoe, they were literally throwing homemade hand grenades at each other in the Mule Shoe. early on Petersburg, just not far from where I grew up. Brother Hancock was in on the early assault in Petersburg, which eventually became a siege. They coming into Petersburg, they backed off a little bit. They were still wary. Grant had given up 50,000 men fighting Lee from the wilderness all the way around Cold Harbor, coming around the eastern end of Richmond, trying to take the underbelly. So Hancock, they were kind of wary about coming into Petersburg, but little did they know there were what they call the young men or young boys and grandpas brigade that had rolled out of Petersburg to meet the Union onslaught, which Hancock was involved with. So they backed off there, but eventually they laid siege to Petersburg. After the war, we're going to find Hancock, very interestingly, was the overseer of the execution of the conspirators that killed Abraham Lincoln, President Lincoln. After overseeing the execution, he's sent out to the Indian Territory to work with the Sioux and Cheyenne. He takes command of what they call the Atlantic Division out of New York in 1872. Still very successful, still held in very high regard was Brother Hancock. Mexican War hero, Civil War hero. He takes that fame and ushers in a bid for president 1880. Our brother does, as a Democrat running against Garfield, who would later on Garfield would win the presidency. Brother Hancock will go on later on to be the first president of the National Rifle Association, and set up 2 or 3 different veterans organizations for Union veterans of the American Civil War. A great man, both men, great Masons, incredible stories both. Later on, we find 1886, we lose our brother Hancock. He passes away in Governor's Island with complications from the wound he received in the American Civil War, and then complicated by his diagnosis of diabetes. He was a member of Charity Lodge number 190 in Norristown, Pennsylvania. That's where he's buried. But the story is 90% accurate in my view. It's my opinion. I know us. I know our brothers. They were tight. You're not going to hand over your last will and testament and personal effects to a brother you just happen to eat dinner with. It is a most excellent statement of what we are and what we need to continue to be. I've shown my son, we were at Gettysburg together, and and we went to the statue and explained to him what this is. And one day you will feel the same thing for Bingham that Armistead and Armistead felt for Bingham. You will feel that. And that's one of the things we need to take from that sculpture. Is such a cataclysmic wrenching of the national soul fighting. Literally, we can't even fathom the distress and the anxiety and the fear of one of your good brothers being across the field, having to strike him down or get into a melee where you don't know who's who, and striking your brother down in battle. That had to have been one of the most distressing things they had to deal with in that struggle to reunite the country. But it was it's a beautiful story. Jeff Shera, the author of Gods and Generals and then Last Full Measure. If you get a chance, it is a great read. The movie's good. They dramatize they take some Hollywood dramatization to the relationship of Armistead and Hancock. I get it. I see what they're doing. They were friends. They were great brothers. They loved each other, there's no doubt, Masonically. And that is it's a great story. That's about all I got on our brothers Hancock and Armistead.
Thank you, Brother Carden.
I would like to reference, if you want some good Masonic reading on history, if you're a history Masonic nut like I am, Washington's Immortals by O'Donnell. If any brothers had a chance to read that, no offense to our English brothers, but it is a profound read of the Baltimore Regiment, who were probably the early version of SEAL Team 6 for George Washington. So another great read. O'Donnell, Washington's Immortals. There was a band of brother Freemasons in the Baltimore Regiment who started that regiment. And Washington, of course, being a Freemason, could go to, there was 5 or 6 core Masons in that group. And they had field lodges together. And it is a very, very excellent read. And the author touches on our Masonic ties a little bit about the middle of the book, but you can see the trust that Washington had in this Baltimore Regiment. These brothers giving their word, they're gonna, you could trust them, unlike the militia. And it's a great read, and I highly recommend it.
Thank you. I wanted to share. I didn't want to be distracting over you, so I put up the picture a couple times, but I wanted to share some pictures. I'm sure I got them queued up right. Okay. I'll go ahead and share this now, because while you were talking, I thought I might be too distracting, but I put up a picture a few times. Our D. Malay chapter went up to Gettysburg for a ritual competition a couple years ago when my son was active, and we took pictures at Gettysburg. If you want to put the name of the book in the chat, brother, if you can, or put it on our Facebook group later. Anyway, this is a couple of our D. Malay advisors at the statue. I got just a couple pictures of the statue and some other things at Gettysburg. I just wanted to roll through these and let everybody see these real quick. There's our D. Malay boys. Gettysburg, here's at the Lincoln's Gettysburg Address Memorial. Gettysburg is a very impressive and humbling place. I recommend everybody, when you get time, to go up there and check it out.
Yeah, there were a couple of instances of Masonic relief during the battle. There's incidents up on Cemetery Ridge near Culp's where brothers were surrendering and giving the grand hailing sign, and they were treated to the surrender and brought out and not shot. Amazing stories of brotherhood throughout that war. It's a shame we had to go through it, but there are some beautiful aspects of Masonic brotherhood that did take place, no doubt about it.
Agreed.
I think it separates Freemasons and our brotherhood from society, and that we will go the last full measure for our brothers, and it's incredible.
I just want to highlight, there were several statues. Different states donated statues for Gettysburg. And if you notice all the little emblems here, I'm not even sure what all the emblems are down at the bottom here.
Brigade badges.
Those brigade badges?
Yeah, Irish, yeah. Iron Brigade. Oh yeah.
Yeah, this is from the state of New York. And then we picked a few, just kind of a quick overview. Here's the memorial.
There's a monument and memorial every 8 feet.
Yep. This is the friend-to-friend memorial that you were talking about. Mm-hmm. You got a few different shots.
Yep.
That was.
Oh yeah.
I think that was it. Okay. Just wanted to share those briefly with everybody. Yeah, it's humbling to go to a national memorial, a national cemetery like that, and just see, especially in the case of Gettysburg, because it's fought the Civil War being fought here in Virginia, and this is all in our neck of the woods. You can't go far in Virginia without seeing some memorial, some little mile marker, a little historical marker from either the Civil War or the Revolutionary War as you drive along, as you walk through areas. There's so much history right here in our area.
I got to attend a field lodge at Gettysburg. There was a 125 year, I forgot which anniversary it was, 150. And they had a couple of interesting signs up, square and compass and an arrow. And my wife was like, look, there it is. So I went and talked to a brother, and he said, yeah, we're having an open lodge meeting tonight. Need to see your dues card, whatnot. And it was a great presentation. You had to walk down a trail down into a creek bottom, and they had the lodge set up, and everything was protected. It was a tiled lodge. They'll do that every now and then. When you have these large gatherings at Gettysburg, there is definitely a lodge. They'll have a field lodge there. So our brethren from out of town, if you catch one, if you want to come to, if you go to Gettysburg and they're having a large event, I guarantee you there will be a lodge, a field lodge that goes on. And it was really neat to attend a field lodge, and you had to walk back quite a ways. They didn't want anybody taking a peek. So they took care of that well.
Did anybody have any questions or comments for Brother Vince?
I think they're asleep.
Anyone? All right, wake up.
They're
Sam, did you have your hand up?
Yes. Thank you, Brother Vince, for the interesting story.
You're welcome, brother.
Yeah, I think, but I did not get the name of the book for reference.
I'm sorry, got it right here. This is the Washington's Immortals, like George Washington, Washington's Immortals by Patrick K. O'Donnell. Patrick K. O'Donnell.
Okay.
A very, very great read on the American Revolution, and our 5 or 6 brothers in that Baltimore regiment that really, really were Washington's right hand, and they go through all the battles. Long Island was a huge battle that they saved. Trenton was a huge battle down south when they get to fighting in South Carolina, and these men went on foot. Some of the Civil War guys, they got to take steamers and railroad, and there was some footwork, but back in the Revolutionary, this is all on foot, and it's a very, very good book if you want to delve into any American Revolution Freemason ties.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome, my brother.
Yeah, very nice presentation. I wanted to add, for being, I think, the only Ohio Mason on here, there is in Ohio a lodge that has been chartered by Grand Lodge that is referred to as the Pioneer Lodge. Mm-hmm. And they are it's made up of reenactors, Civil War reenactors, mm-hmm. and they will actually put on various degrees for different lodges, and they do it in full uniform, both North and South uniforms and so forth. And probably the most intriguing part of it is at the end of or not the end, but in the 3rd degree, when certain individuals meet their demise, it is by cannon fire. So, and they do, like I said, if you're ever in Ohio when they're putting it on, it's a pretty neat degree to see. They do travel a little bit with it, but honestly, it's more with our location in southwestern Ohio. It's more into Kentucky and so forth that travel occurs. But it is an interesting degree.
I got a cool anecdote or a little story, real quick. It tickled me, and it still tickles me to this day. Back in, I was a young worshipful master in 01, 28 years old. I didn't know my head from my ham sandwich in lodge, and then I'd worked through the chairs, and just a baby at 28, and I loved it, and I still love it today. But I'm our acting worshipful master, and I had to do a job down south in Mississippi, and we're on the interstate. Me and my a fellow technician. He and I are driving down the interstate, And I look over to my right, and there's a disabled car and an older gentleman behind the car giving the grand hailing sign. And I go past him, and he gave it twice. He gives the grand hailing sign twice. So there, I went cold chill went up my back, and I went up to the next exit, and I get off the exit. My buddy goes, "Dude, what are you doing?" I said, "I'm going back." "Well, what are you going back for?" I said, "I've got a brother back there on the road that needs help. I need to see what's going on." "What do you mean this?" "Oh," he goes, "Oh, this Mason stuff." I said, "You'll see. You just stay in the car and keep your mouth shut." So I go up to the next exit and come back, and I pull up behind this elderly gentleman, and I go over to him and I said, "Brother, how are you doing?" He said, "I'm doing all right." He said, "I just wanted to see if it'll work. My car's broke down, and I'm a 95-year-old past master of my lodge here in South Carolina, and I've always wanted to do that. And I guess this is my chance to do it. I am in distress." And he goes, I called my boy. I called my boy to come. I said, "Well, how old's your boy?" He said, "He's 75. And I said, "Oh, okay." I said, "Everything good?" He goes, "Yeah, we're good." He said, "I'm 95. And so he and I talked, and he didn't make light of it, but he said, he'd been a Mason for 60 years. And he said, I'm in distress." And I said, "Well, brother, I saw it go up, and I swung it around, and we're headed to Mississippi, blah, blah, blah." And it was just a kind of a neat thing at 28 years old, running into a 95-year-old brother, throwing up the grand hailing sign. And thank God he wasn't hurt. But he said, "I'll be gosh," he goes, "it worked."
That's funny.
It worked.
I did want to recognize a brother who joined us late here. Brother Jake Trineri is my junior warden at Virginia Research Lodge. It's nice to have him here today.
Brothers, good morning. Happy Saturday morning. Always wonderful to spend some time with brothers, and always take in whatever you guys have to give me, even whether it's passive or in real time. A lot of times I get to read it after the fact because I'm working Saturday mornings. But awesome to see you guys, and great to see everybody together learning stuff this morning.
All right. Thanks, Jake, for coming out.
Excellent.
I did want to go ahead and announce our upcoming events here. Dave, you'll be happy to hear this. You recommended this, brother. Taylor Kleineck from Ohio is going to talk about right-sizing your lodge. You were the one who put me on track with him. I guess any more specifics to flesh that out. I have a sheet of upcoming meetings, and I make Facebook events. So that's what I usually look at here on the screen when I'm reading it off to y'all, because I've got a nice summary to read as I'm presenting it here. And then that's on the 15th of April. And then on the 29th is Brother Rodney McGilvary will speak about a Kabbalistic interpretation of Freemasonry. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm not sure if Rodney has spoken before. I don't know. I can't always remember if I've just talked to somebody a whole lot about things, or they've come out more than once and given talks. But those are two interesting papers coming up for us. If any of you who have not presented would like an opportunity to be one of our guest speakers, we would love to have you. So anything else to bring up? Our next meeting, I talked about our February meeting for Virginia Research Lodge in person we had, and then coming up in May is our next one. If any of you in Virginia want to come out and attend, I think it's May 20th. So we do have stuff coming up in person for Virginia Research Lodge a few times this year. We'll continue to have these meetings every 2 weeks here online, and I'll move it around other events as they come up, because a lot of things come up on Saturdays. It's hard to get people out, and there's always conflicts. I think today there is, I know there's a Grand High Priest visit this afternoon, and there is, I think, a school or something for Royal Arch today somewhere in our area. So there's always conflicts. There's always something going on Saturdays. And I appreciate everybody here coming out, especially my regular attendees who make it out here almost every time. So any other questions for Brother Vince before I wrap it up? We're right at 11 o'clock here. Anybody get anything else they wanted to share? Anyone going once? Okay. All right. Thank you again, Brother Vince. I really enjoyed that talk. It's nice to have you here. And good topic. Really enjoyed it. We it just covers the broad spectrum of things we cover on here. So thank everybody for coming out. If you're watching us on YouTube, please like and subscribe. I think I owe you all at least one, maybe two meetings now. I haven't updated lately onto YouTube, so I need to make sure I get on that. I think I did the Chamber of Reflection. I may be caught up. Okay, just the last one, interjurisdictional masonry with Brother Meek. I think I need to upload. So I have one, maybe two that I need to upload. And I have started, if you've noticed, I've started going in and trimming down our YouTube videos, because most of them are like 1.5 to 2 hours long, trimming out most of the chatter and just getting down to the paper itself and the Q&A, make them a little more palatable for people who are coming in on YouTube, and get it down to under 45 minutes at least. But, you know, these are interesting talks, and we want to make sure we capture them. I think I might start asking brothers if they want to maybe cut down the papers a bit to around 20 minutes. So that way the YouTube videos are shorter and we attract a bigger crowd. We really don't have any hard rules. I'm kind of figuring as we go along. I gathered a bunch of metrics on it. And I put those on Facebook, like, hey, here's how many total minutes and everything else, just so I get a feel for how long they are, because I don't know until I go back and watch them and count up the minutes and how long they are. So this forum is still new to us. We're still figuring out where we're going. So I don't have any hard fast rules, but I think I might start pushing towards slightly shorter presentations, just so people coming in to watch them I always figure if you're here, people here are happy to stick it out. Most everybody stuck it out the whole time. And, you know, you'll sit here for an hour and a half and participate because you're here, but going to click a video on YouTube later on, you might shy away from, like, oh, I don't know if I want to watch an hour and a half video. So that's the nature of things. So we're still figuring this medium out. I think at some point in the future, when I have free time, whatever that is, I'm going to look at making some shorter, like 5 or 10 minute videos about masonry, maybe taking some of these papers, shortened down, and just to give people more bite-sized things to watch that are shorter. Because these, no matter what I do, these unstateds are going to run an hour. Even if we trim them down, you're talking at least half an hour for the paper and the Q&A. So we may look at getting some shorter ones. And I may have people come on here and give, like, maybe line up 2 people to give 2 short talks and then trim them down. I don't know. We're still figuring it out. If you have any comments, any suggestions on what we can do to improve, if you want to give a paper, if you know somebody who wants to give a paper, please refer them to me. If you have Brother Rivolo is volunteering to give us a paper. All
right. Good morning, brother. Yes, I'm sorry I disconnected, and since it's raining and I was in the building, I lost it. May I please ask if you have recorded this descent, or somehow get to because I was in the middle. I was so interested about history because I work at a very important landmark as a part-time. I am the tour guide of the George Washington Masonic National Memorial in Alexandria.
Wow.
That's great. So, well, yeah, I was explaining, Jose, that this does go up on YouTube.
And sorry to interrupt.
That's quite all right. No, we were just talking about that. It'll be available on YouTube. All of them are. I have to go back and edit them slightly, and I put them up on YouTube generally within a week. I try to get them back to y'all within a week, or at least before the next one, you know, but sometimes I get behind. It's, you know, one-man operation here. But yes, all of these eventually go on YouTube, so you can always go back and watch them then. So they'll be available.
It's a good feature because this is Jake. Sorry again.
Yes.
But it's a good feature because for somebody like me, I've got 3 kids that are in sports every Saturday morning, and you know, they're all under the age of 12. It's great to come back and see it after the fact, even if I can't participate in it when it's actually going on.
Absolutely. I totally understand. This has been, honestly, considering a good number of our attendees, such as Brian, are in the UK and in Europe. It's a good time for them, and it's a good time for most of us to have this. So we're keeping this time. There has been one occasion where we did it on I think a Sunday night, because we had an Orthodox Jewish professor who gave a talk on alchemy and Judaism, which is really interesting, but he couldn't attend on a Saturday. So it's Sabbath for him. I've considered for Brother Graham and some other Australian brothers, we might have a Australian type panel again. I like to do the panels with brothers from other countries, and maybe we'll do it on another time that's convenient for y'all. So we're open to, changing up the formula from time to time. I'll give plenty of warning about that. But I've been interested in, I know it's, for me, doing something at 7 o'clock during the week is actually harder than doing this on Saturdays, but we may do it one night on a different time just to see if we get better attendance and just see how that works. Like I said, I'm flexible about this.
Zoom table lodge.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, Graham, we've got about a dozen brothers who, and by the way, the source for most of my speakers has been the research papers, because that's why I asked you for your lodge and where it is, so I can go back later and say, oh, I've got a bunch of brothers in Australia. I got about 12 in Australia who are in the research paper. So I'll reach out to them and we'll see about having a panel with you all and talk about Masonry in Australia. I think it'll be good. And then we may do that where it's more conducive for you all, because it's 3 a.m. there now? I don't know if the time zone changed.
It's 2 a.m, and in an hour it'll.
Okay.
So we go back an hour, hour.
Okay, so it's 2 a.m. for you now, and it's 11 o'clock here. So I think just to draw more of you out, we'll do it. I wanted to do one with some Chinese brothers. I had 1 or 2 who were interested. I really want to eventually do a panel discussion with most of the foreign countries that I have brothers that I'm in contact with. And if you want to go back on YouTube, the Brazilian one was one of my favorites. That's one of the first videos we did, was a panel discussion with Brazilian Masons, because I love to see the different, and I just ask simple questions like, what kind of aprons do you wear? What do you wear to lodge? What are your dues? How do you elect your members? Stuff that for Virginia, we're all the same. And I kind of assume that Virginia is typical of American Masonry. For the most part, it is. What's typical here is typical for the rest of the country, and contrast and compare to the Philippines, to England, to Scotland, to Brazil, and have them talk about. The most interesting thing I'll say about Brazil was they have this coat, this real lightweight, think of the really lightweight raincoats you've seen that, really thin, you can ball them up like ponchos, you can fold them up real small. They have these robe-like things that they wear at lodge. So they might show up for lodge like I'm in a polo and, if you're in a polo shirt and khakis or a suit, you go to the lodge meeting and you put this long thing on, kind of like a lab coat or a jumpsuit, buttons all the way up. And they wear that at their meetings and put their aprons on the outside. So you wouldn't wear a suit on the subway or the train in Brazil. You just wouldn't wear a suit. So they go to their meetings more casual, and they all put this thing on. I forget what they called it for their meetings. So that's something just. Go ahead.
Like West Virginians.
What?
Like West Virginia.
Well, what do they do? I'm not talking about coveralls. I'm talking about like Brother Ross down there is in his coveralls. No, I'm not talking about wearing coveralls. I'm talking about something that you bring with you, like in your apron bag, and you get to lodge, and you put this thing on over your normal clothes. And he says some guys are in suits, very few. Most guys are like polos and khakis, but they all put this thing on before their meeting.
Chris, is it like a baldric? Is it like a baldric?
I'm not sure. I'll have to go back and look at it and watch the video again. I actually made the suggestion once that for Masons, those of you in the Scottish Rite, you've seen like the black robes that we wear for most of the degrees now. I would think it'd be interesting if a lodge, if people are so concerned about dress and want to make sure that, we all should look alike, and some people don't like the idea of us wearing suits or tuxedos and everything else. If money is an issue, what if lodges went to like adopting these black robes, like choir robes, sort of, but all black? And a lodge buys a set of them, and then everybody who comes to lodge just puts on a robe, puts the apron outside of it, and go to your meeting. And that way everyone is dressed alike, but you could have shown up in polos and khakis and been comfortable, but there's a uniformity, and by putting on the robe, you're taking on the seriousness of the meeting, because that's a big thing we've talked about with traditional observance and other ideas about life. If you're not taking Masonry seriously, if you don't respect Masonry because you're wearing like a polo shirt to a meeting, if we're not all in suits, if we're not all in tuxedos, we're trying to show reverence for the meeting, for the event. And if money is an issue, we just buy robes and we all put on the robes and go and have our meeting. We're showing the solemnity and the respect for the meeting by dressing up for the meeting. It's just an idea that came across with what they're doing. Anyhow,
there are actually a number of lodges in Ohio that do that. My home lodge has a set of black with the robes. My home lodge has a set of black robes. We don't use them for every meeting, but we have a lot of men who want to be officers, for example, but their work schedule creates a challenge where not that they can't get to lodge, but they may come to lodge directly from work. Right. So rather than worrying about what they're dressed like and whether they happen to be, their clothes happen to be a little dirty or whatever. Yeah, we just throw the robes on and exactly like you said. And there are quite a few lodges in Ohio that do that.
Interesting. Yeah. I think we should have one of our presentations. I keep having ideas for either papers or for meetings. Maybe we should have another meeting where we just discuss things like that, how to wear, what should we dress for a lodge? But I mean, I'll share this because I'm always thinking about this Zoom meeting. Believe me, I put a lot of thought into it and how it can be better, how we can do things differently. We try to not be cookie cutter. I mean, like today you could say we're typical of what you'd find at a research lodge, right? We have our speaker, we open, we say hello, we bring on our speaker, we have Q&A. That's typical, and that's what these started with. But we have a forum where I can do pretty much anything I want. I like the panel discussions. In a way, they're better because then I get like 5 or 6 brothers who all have their own opinions, and we just ask them questions, and we kind of have more of a discussion than simply a presentation. Not there's anything wrong with having a paper like you did. I want to keep doing those, but I want to interject some other ideas, other way, because we have this forum, we can do anything we want. Whereas in a regular lodge meeting, you're not going to have a panel. You're not just going to have a round table discussion at a lodge meeting. You could, although I couldn't. And I've tried in the past to have where we don't have a speaker and we just say, I'm just ask questions of the group, and that's going to be our meeting. And attendance of those really dropped. So it seems like people weren't interested at the time of doing those. So maybe if I soften you up and tell you what I want to do, I can get good attendance for one of those. But I'd love to have something where our topic of discussion is this, and everyone who comes, just be prepared. I'll just ask everyone a question going around the room, and we just get feedback from everybody. I think those are more educational at times than a prepared paper, because it makes all of you think what are we doing in my lodge? And maybe something you hadn't really thought about much, but you get a perspective of different jurisdictions and how they do things. So anyhow, all right. So thank you, Brother Vince. Thank you, everyone, for attending, and looking forward to seeing you all again soon.
God bless you, brothers.
Thank you, brother.
God bless, brothers.
God bless.
Thank you.
Well,